So let's start off by talking about what exactly is happening in the closing process group. Bit by bit, let's cover this. So let's first of all talk about lessons learned and knowledge transfer. And the reason why I want to get this done up front is a lot of my friends from the 5th edition, they seem to have an idea that lessons learned are collected in the closing process group, but that is not correct. You do not collect lessons learned in the closing process group. Rather, you put all of those lessons learned that you've been collecting across all of the processes and all of the knowledge areas and all of the domains, you finally put them together here in the closing process group. There's a difference between putting something together versus collecting them for the first time. So we are not collecting these things for the first time. We're not, asking people, what did you learn from this? No, that's already been done. It's been done in scope, control scope. It's been done in schedule, control schedule. It's been done in risk, monitor risk. We've already done that. But we're going to compile everything that hasn't already been compiled, right? Because now we're doing things in an iterative fashion. It's not like the big boom at the end. Oh, well, the lessons learned. Tell me what you learned. Tell me what you learned. No. That's already been done. People already know what they learned. That's why we've got the managed project knowledge process. See? And as things are collected, they are being funneled into that. But ultimately, the final transfer of all of those lessons learned in the lessons learned register into something called the lessons learned repository, that is what happens here. So I just want to correct that mindset from my friends from the 5th edition who think lessons learned are collected at the end of the project. No. This is a new world order in the world of the PMI, and it's done incrementally all throughout the different processes where you see it being done. And ultimately, the managed project knowledge process, it gets a lot of those things integrated, makes them available as the project is continuing. But when you get to the end of the project, that final lessons learned register, that is what you're transferring into the lessons learned repository. And the lessons learned repository lives within the organizational process assets that we talk about, the corporate knowledge base. All right, so there are many different hierarchies of lessons learned. So don't lose focus. You got your lessons learned, those go into the lessons learned register. Your lessons learned register at the end of the project in this closed project or phase process gets put into the lessons learned repository, and that in turn is part of your corporate knowledge base, and that is part of your OPA. So there's a long chain of events that happens when it comes to lessons learned. All right. So with that off the table, why don't we begin talking in a bit more detail about these processes or these aspects of closing out the project. So let's talk about administrative closure. So administrative closure is pretty much all of those bits and pieces of administrative work that need to be closed out. But let's first talk about reviewing the work. You want to review the work and you want to ensure completion as the project manager. You want to make that check off on the checkbox that yes, indeed, this is completed and we're good to go to the next part of closing out the project. The next thing you see on the screen is ensure completion or exit criteria for the phase or the project. We're talking about all documents, all deliverables. We want to make sure that all that stuff is updated and that there are no pending change requests. In other words, your change log has been effectively closed out. You've made sure that anything that was pending, has been finally closed out, as this isn't going to happen, end of project, that type of thing. You want to make sure that outstanding issues are resolved. So your issue log, again, you want to go through it. You want to make sure that if there's anything that was outstanding in the issue log, it's going to be effectively closed out. You want to confirm deliverable delivery. We talk about final product, service, or result transition. There's a transition of the deliverable. So here, you want to make sure that indeed it was received, and you want to make sure that that formal acceptance, make sure you've got it. Make sure you check your records, because with all the excitement of the client accepting it, sometimes we forget the formal acceptance. You want to make sure you've got it. And you also want to make sure that there's a transition, big old ceremony. Like one of my clients, they would have the big old walkthrough. The ship has been built, the Army Corps, or whoever it's been built for. They come around and take a look. Okay, that's been done, that's been done. They walk through, make sure everything looks good, check off on those sheets, and boom, that's the final transition. And then there's a lot of paperwork, training documentation, making sure that people taking over the system or the product have been trained. Those are things you want to do here in this process. Next one is you want to reassign and reapportion excess materials and supplies. So we've got the control resources process that makes sure that resources are being spent the right way. But here, if you've got any excess at the end of the project, you want to make sure that it's transitioned back into the company or to a different project or program, whatever the procedure is. Next, you want to reallocate project facilities and equipment, similar to what we just talked about. Because resources deal with human, equipment, materials, supplies, facilities. You want to make sure that anything that was not used is transitioned back into the organization or program or wherever it is. And then this one, relevant costs are charged to the project. I cannot overstate this. And in organizations where they use charge numbers and cost centers, you know very well that on a lot of projects, there's a mismatch with the cost center and the charge. You don't want that to happen. You want to make sure that all of those charges have hit, because once the project is closed, it's a pain in the neck jumping through all of those hoops to get accounting or finance to reopen that charge number, and then you got, everyone's looking at you, your name's blacklisted as the PM who didn't know what he or she was doing. No, you don't want that to happen. So you want to check off on all of these things. It could lead to big problems in some firms. Some firms I've worked in, the vendor is coming around months after the project is done to ask for a payment. How on earth are we going to generate that? We thought we were done. So, no thinking, make sure. That's what PMI is trying to say here. Closing charge accounts, cost accounts, project accounts, you want to make sure that stuff is done. Because if it's not done at the right time, it could create problems. And then you want to complete the final report, the final project report that says, this is what happened, this is where we got to final place of completion, whatever the story is that needs to be put into that final report for the project, you want to make sure it's done. And this could actually be a deliverable with management, with stakeholders. So I really want to make sure that this stuff is done. All right. So that kind of closes out administrative closure. Let's talk about contract closure procedure. So in order to close out a contract, you need to remember this happens in the control procurements process, but you are still putting on that thinking cap of this could be the final phase in the project, closing out the project as a whole, or this could be the end of one phase. So just remember, the process is called close project or phase. So we're not closing out the project every time we do this process. We could be closing out a phase, so keep that in mind. So contract closure procedure. And what does this deal with? As you can see on the screen, completion of contractual related activities for the project or phase, formal acceptance of vendor or seller deliverable or work. That also needs to be under the microscope. Now, in addition to this, in closing out the contract, you want to make sure you finalize any open claims. You want to make sure that you've updated records and documents to reflect any final results. Now, for those of you who are just joining, I'm taking a look at page 128. So page 128, I'm looking specifically at some of these things on the OPAs, the final report, which is actually page 127, and the summary of all of this is on page 123 actually. So if you look at page 123, a lot of what I'm talking about is right here. What exactly you're closing out, the big bullets. And I covered this the last time I tried to do this before PowerPoint crashed. I covered page 123. So go back to page 123, take a look at that. But anything to do with closing out the contract, you want to make sure it's done. This is really more like checking off to make sure that these things are done, and you want to update any records and documents to reflect final results. You also want to collect any project or phase records that need to be in your final documentation. And this is a big one, archiving records and information for future use. So whatever the process is for archiving records or information, you want to make sure it's done. In some organizations, unfortunately, they've got absolutely no way of archiving anything. It's like on everyone's desktop. No, 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 it shouldn't be like that. Because you want it to be like a digital nervous system. As our friend Billy at Microsoft says, 3 clicks of a button, you want to be able to get to that information. You know, your lessons learned repository should be accessible, should be searchable by keywords. You know, so you want to archive it properly so that people can get to it. Let's talk about the lessons learned pieces that I was referring to a few minutes ago. So you want to audit project success or failure. Did we fail? Did we succeed? How do you know that? Well, you've got your project charter as an input to close project or phase. So that will tell you the criteria, the success criteria. Now this is quite important. I mentioned this in the beginning, the transfer of lessons learned, the lessons learned register to the lessons learned repository. You want to make sure that's done. Next, you want to investigate reasons for termination before completion. So let's say your project ends abruptly. Don't just shut it down and return all the monies. You want to first of all identify where did we really start and why was this project terminated. So reasons for termination, that is also something you want to do in this process. Next, collecting and sharing any suggestions for OPA improvements. So if there are any organizational process assets that can be improved, this is where you would collect any of that information from your team members, from stakeholders, and so on. All right, transfer the deliverable to the next phase or to production operations. That should happen as well. So folks, you can see there's a whole lot of stuff that happens in this particular process, close project or phase. For all the other juicy details, page 123 in your favorite book, PMBOK guide, all right? So, in addition to all of this stuff, we should probably just kick the tires one more time and make sure that we get those final slides that try to evade us. The last time we did this, our friends at Microsoft, they kind of put a damper in what we're trying to do. So let's do that. So going over to the closing process group, that's where we stopped. Seems like closing has got an agenda that we don't know about. Uh-oh, there we go again. Oh dear, someone said lightning never strikes twice. Oh, I think our friends at Microsoft beg to differ. Well, I'm not going to give up that easily, folks. I'm going to have to restart this thing, and perhaps I'll play some music for you while that cooks up in the background. No, this has to work today. So while that is getting ready to readjust itself, perhaps I should give you a little tour of my warehouse, my project management warehouse. I've got all sorts of ITTOs, tools and techniques, products, services, and results. I'm just kidding. Let's get this thing straight. Come on, Microsoft. Hey, people are watching you on the world stage. What's the matter with you? What are you doing? If I told Steve this story, he would say, I told you. You know, Steve Jobs, he had quite the impression about Microsoft. Oh dear, you need to go read some of his quotable quotes about Microsoft. Oh my goodness. But they were good old buddies, you know. Candor gets you further ahead in life. He was very candid and honest about how he felt regarding Microsoft, you know. But what do we do without Microsoft? I mean, even though we've got the Google Chromes of this world and we've got the Google Drives, Google Docs, it's like Microsoft has its tentacles over the world stage. It's like there's no escape for us. All right, Microsoft guys, come on, let's get this done once and for all. Please do not embarrass yourselves. This is our final, this is going to be our final take, final try, final take. All right, can I depend on you? I don't know about that. Do you guys get those Windows 10 updates? Aren't they so annoying? There you are in the middle of work, and the ridiculous thing takes over your computer. It wants to update everything under the sun without your permission. Quite annoying. Anyway, let's go over to closing. Let's hope it works this time. Come on, Billy. All right, close project or phase. So in close project or phase, as you can see on the screen, what is really happening is we are closing out a project or a phase in a project. And lessons learned are being transferred, and any loose leaf lessons learned are being finally compiled into your lessons learned register, which will make its way, hopefully, into the lessons learned repository. Phew. Looks like we made it. Well, you've been watching the 49 processes, the summary of the 49 processes in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. I always have to hold my tongue. I always feel like saying 5th edition. Oh dear, because those habits that trainers like me have, they die hard, you know, because we're still getting used to the 6th. But anyway, it's been the 49 processes, summary, and exam tips. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made sense to you what exactly I'm trying to call your attention to. Basically, anyone coming on the journey to be a PMP, I want them to know what it's all about. I want them to know the processes. I want to put them on the right trajectory to success. Those of you who are getting ready for the exam, hey, listen to those tips I gave you again. You know, the high-level tips about initiating, the importance of going through it. You know, we talked to one of our students last night. I don't know if you guys were on that call, but it was played live here on live streaming. And we had Craig, who talked about watching the videos. And as you're watching the videos, you're taking notes. And those notes are sure going to be very elaborate, because when we train this stuff on our self-study course on the learning management system, it went very, very deep. I mean, each process in integration, for example, ranged anywhere from 10 minutes to 17 minutes. Managed project knowledge, it went on really, really deep. So as you're taking notes, you're going to be getting more and more and more in depth into the information. In fact, I should probably show you that. Why don't I show you that? Let me show you what Craig taught us last night, because I think this could help someone who is getting ready for the exam, you know, just to get an idea of how deep you need to get into this stuff. So I want to make sure I add as much value to you as possible. I want to take advantage of this discussion. So why don't we take a look at what Craig shared last night. You know, I don't know what system you're using, but if you're struggling and, you know, the training you're going through is not hitting the mark because it's too shallow, you definitely want to check out that website, you know, that I'm showing on the screen right now, the Praizion.com, and sign up for the 35-hour training, you know, if you feel the training was shallow. You know, the funny thing is, we students of the PMBOK Guide, we know, you know, we've got that feeling when training hasn't really hit the mark. You know, people say that training was kind of superficial, it was kind of shallow. People know, they know when they've been for shallow training. So anyway, talking about Craig one more time, if you take a look at what I'm about to share with you, you can see all of this stuff that he did. So all this stuff here is all of his training notes, you know, doodles, notes, mind maps, stuff that he pretty much wrote down, as he was listening to the training on the learning management system. He took very, very detailed notes. And as you can see, just to zoom in a little bit, you can see his notes there. Right there, you can see he was taking notes on the issue log. And there you can see he's taking notes on performing integrated change control, change requests, so on and so forth. And on this other page here, if I can move it a little bit, you can see he is taking notes on direct and managed project. I mean, take a look at that. That's the way to do it, folks. You got to get deep. You got to get detailed. You got to be relentless in your pursuit of success. And at the end of the day, Craig had 5 above targets. One take, 5 above targets. He took the exam once and killed it savagely. Speaking of savagely, if you didn't hear my announcement in the previous videos, the Savage on Saturday group has been opened up again. It was closed. It was a secret group for a while, but now we make it semi-secret in that you can send in an application to the group. We'll get you into the group, and you'll be able to learn from a lot of people who have conquered the beast on my watch. So it's on Facebook. It's a Facebook study group, but you need to go to savageonsaturday.com. If you go to savageonsaturday.com, you'll be able to join that group, and it will add value to your prep as you stay hooked into that group. So folks, that pretty much is it, as far as what I had to share with you today. But if you have any questions, I think now would be a good time to take any questions about the process groups, about the knowledge areas, about any of the things that I've shared here with you guys. Any questions or concerns or comments or reports of success? I don't know, you got anything to report about? Why don't you let me know? And while I do that, I'll show you a few pictures. Hey, here's a picture from the United States Army Corps of Engineers, my friends in Arkansas. We had a 35 contact project management training course. But what exactly are they doing? You typically don't see much of this in trainings, but what they're doing in this one is they are actually playing a game, believe it or not. They're playing a game based on the 49 processes of the PMBOK guide on page 25. I always have to think twice for that one. Anyway, that's what they're doing. Fayez Ali, my good friend, how are you doing? What's up? How's your studying coming along? Are you making progress in leaps and bounds? Mr. Christopher Barnes, what's up? What's up? What's up? How you doing? You doing okay? You got any questions? Let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, any concerns, any reports of conquering the beast. Any of you guys get certified in the past week? I'd really like to know about that. So if you want to share any reports of your success, now would be a good time to do it. Any success reports? Anyone who wants to report the PMI to me? You're no longer reporting me to the PMI, you're reporting the PMI to fail. Hey, PMI is making my life difficult. No, they're not. You only think they are. You only think they are. They're not making your life difficult. I wish I could show you this. I don't know, you might have seen it last night, but Craig actually showed his PMP exam success report, 5 above targets. That's as cool as it gets, So it is possible, it is extremely possible for you to succeed on the exam. Just to go a step further, I'll show you one more page from Craig's presentation last night. because he shared something that a lot of people may find interesting, and I would like to recommend to people to do this. So what he did was a breakdown of all of the processes, all of the process groups, all of the knowledge areas, and this pretty much served as a sanity check for him to indicate, do you really understand this thing or not? You know, so let me share that with you right now. So take a look at the screen. So what I'm sharing with you is all the stuff this guy typed out. He typed out every single process group, knowledge area, and not just that, every single ITTO. He typed all of this stuff out. Isn't that crazy? Isn't it? But that's as far as certain people have to go, folks, to really make sure it sticks. You see that? That is a deep dive into the entire gamut of the PMBOK guide. You know, and this is in Excel. He did this in Excel. And I'd like to recommend to anyone else, you know, that's, if you feel that the material isn't sticking, it's not gelling enough, maybe this is what you need to do. You know, maybe you need to go this far, you know. And basically he says he created a study guide following my model, you know, but because I comb through everything, you know, so as I'm combing through the inputs, tools, techniques, outputs, processes, knowledge areas, process group, he's taking notes and he's doing this to kick the tires, which I felt was just, you know, a phenomenal effort on his part. What else can I share with you? Let me share one more thing that came out of that meeting with Craig yesterday, because we had a 1 hour 20-minute meeting where we talked about all sorts of stuff, you know. Here's another image from my friends at Pepperdine University. These guys, they are sorting ITTOs. Take a look at that while I'm bringing up one more slide for you. But the guys in the picture, they're sorting out ITTOs. And it's actually a cool game if you did this. If you broke every process into the inputs, the tools and techniques, the outputs, just cut them into tiny pieces of paper, and then sort them out. See if you can sort out all of the tools, techniques into one middle column, the inputs into one left column, and the outputs into one right column. You know, in fact, I had 49 envelopes in my trainings that I did. And in this one at Pepperdine, what I did was I would bring out 6 envelopes. At that time, integration had 6. So this is from back then. And I would bring out 6 envelopes and I'll put them in different parts of the room. And you might want to try this game with your team, but put the envelopes in different parts of the room and I tell them, okay, you don't know what process it is by looking at the envelope, but I want you through the tools, techniques, inputs, and outputs to go through and tell me which process is it, and I want you to sort them into inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. So anyway, that's a fun game to play. But let me share with you the final thing, my closing remarks after Craig shared his lessons learned yesterday. On the exam, and this is pretty important, folks, on the exam, you're going to have a boatload, that's right, a boatload of situational questions. The questions that you're going to get on the exam are going to be something to the effect of, you're a project manager, you lost your pocket money, you lost your meal ticket. Seriously, okay, in all seriousness, let me show you a few of these things. So let's go a little bit deeper here. So you're going to have problems to solve. You're a project manager on a problem, you got on a project manager on a problem. You're a project manager on a project, but a project could be a problem. You're a project manager on a project. There is a problem with a project document. And that problem will be described. Maybe it's missing, maybe it's incorrect. What should you do? Next one is there's a problem with a subsidiary plan. your plan for cost, your cost management plan, it has a problem with the metrics that you've decided to use, the cost metrics, maybe the earned value metrics, and you're in the middle of the project and you realize there's something wrong. There's a problem of some sort. They'll describe the problem. What should you do? And then we've got stakeholders when it comes to situational questions about stakeholders. For example, there's a stakeholder that's mad and irate, shouting at you, screaming at you, almost spitting into your face. What do you do? There's a stakeholder that is looking at you menacingly as you enter their complex, external customer. What do you do? Your boss wants you to take action on a document right now, but you've not gone through the proper channels of integrated change control. Or maybe it's your CEO that says, hey, I want you to do this on the project right now. But you've not been through change control. What should you do? In the real world, I know what you would do, but on the PMP exam, you got to know what to do. Maybe your team is confused about requirements. They're stakeholders as well, or maybe the requirements are from some stakeholder giving them grief. What do you do? Situational questions about deliverables. This could be left, right, and center. You could have the good, the bad, the ugly deliverable. What should you do if your deliverable meets all requirements, but your customer says, no, we don't want it? Maybe your customer says, no, it's not fit for our use. Yeah, it meets all the quality requirements in the documents, but we don't like it. We don't want it. What would you do? How would you solve that problem? So your deliverable is rejected. What do? You have scrap and rework. What do? You have material issues. Your materials are showing up late. What would you do? Well, let's say they eventually show up and they're the wrong materials. Would you accept them? What would you do? Changes. This could be left, right, and center on your exam. So the customer requests a verbal change. This is a customer you've known for many years. What would you do? Or your customer requests a documented change. Really, this is a code name for change request. So this is how we want them to submit the change request on a change order form, you see. What about the change control board rejects a change request? What should be done next? What's the best thing to do the moment it's rejected? You could also get situational questions about tools. Hey, let me make it as plain as day for everyone. On the exam, you could get situational questions about inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. And that summarizes the gamut of the PMBOK guide. So in other words, PMI question writers, sneaky lot, they could take anything in the PMBOK guide and create a situational question out of it. And I guess I'm guilty of such, because I hear from our students, Phil, those mock exams were crazy. They're crazier than the PMP exam. And I say, well, I'm glad my question writers and editors got that right. Because the exam, it's riddled with seemingly tricky questions, but I don't really look at them as being tricky. I just look at them as being boss questions. You got to be a boss to answer those questions. You got to be the Don. You got to be the 800-pound gorilla dwarfing the 200-pound gorilla exam. Just like Craig did. You got to boss up on these questions. So I don't like looking at PMI questions as, oh, they're so tricky. No. So they're real world. They're written by experts, psychometricians, people who know how to get you into the zone, corner you to see if you really have the skills. And if you do have the skills, you're going to bring it. You're going to kill it. I was speaking to a student of ours 2 weeks ago, and Charmaine, and what she said was she used the strikeout functionality, and what a world of difference it made. Using the strikeout functionality on the exam versus not using the strikeout functionality can make a world of difference. And I've heard this from so many people. I heard this from a student out of Australia, fantastic student who didn't stop, took it again and again, talk about design of experiments, trying to find what is the sweet spot for me to kill the exam. Refused to take the CAPM exam. I'll never forget that one. He said, no, I'm going to wait it out a year. I'm like, my goodness, you're tenacious. But he waited it out and he took the exam. It was on his 5th try because he took it 3 times. He had to go away for a year. Took it the 4th time And when he took it the fourth time and didn't pass it, I'm like, my goodness, we're going to throw the entire kitchen sink at this miserable test. I'm going to give you all sorts of mock exams. I'm going to create content. Whatever I need to do to make sure you pass the exam, I'm going to do. And that's exactly what I did. And I schooled him on, hey, here's some tips and tricks when you get into the exam about using those functions. Strikeout, highlight. A lot of people don't read the exam instructions, so they miss out on how to tackle the exam. And I was guilty when I took my exam. I was busy doing my brain dump feverishly instead of reading the exam instructions. So I had no clue there was a strikeout function. It's very embarrassing to say this, but a student of mine, many years after training this course, said, Phil, did you know that there's a strikeout function on the exam? I'm like, what? And then when I got into my next PMI exam, which was in schedule management or risk management, I'm like, wow, this actually works. So when I did my ACP exam, I used the strikeout and the highlight all day long, and it worked very well. So what I'm trying to say in essence is use everything you have against the exam to tackle these beastly situational questions, because the exam writers, they'll bring situational questions out of everywhere possible. Process group, even ethics, even the code of ethics. So you want to tread really carefully when it comes to the PMI code of ethics and professional conduct. You got to really know it. You also got to tread carefully when it comes to the PMP content outline. I sing this song almost every week. I'm in broken record mode. Read the content outline. Read the content outline. Someone said, Phil, but what's the point of the content outline? What does it do for me? I'm like, are you kidding? That's the blueprint on which the exam is based. You don't want to read it? Are you kidding? You better get with the program, bro, sis. Read that thing so that when you get into the exam, the language isn't going to be weird to you. Anyway, let's get back to our tools and techniques. So taking a look at these tools and techniques, I was saying the PMI could bring questions out of the woodwork. So this one, which tool should you use for a particular situation? This is happening. Which tool would you use? Or which technique is the best to use? Think about it. You are brainstorming for ideas. You've got all your ideas. What should you do first? Affinity diagram, nominal group technique, or mind map? You see, I could create a scenario. Now, I'm not saying answer it just based on what I've told you, but you need to know what the tools and techniques do. You cannot use your affinity diagram except you've done your brainstorming, right? And then your nominal group technique, you want to choose the best of the best. And then your mind map is going to consolidate everything. So if you do your nominal group before you do your mind map, you're going to end up getting rid of certain things. It really depends on the question. Do you want everything to be in your mind map? Or do you want to weed out those that are valueless ideas? I hate to use that word, but some ideas are better than others. Do you want to waste time drawing a mind map for the big old thing with those not so good ideas, or do you want to hone in on the best of the best ideas? I'm sure a Six Sigma person can tell me the answer to that one, but I'm not saying that is a question on the exam. I'm only trying to use it as an example of what you could get, as far as the PMP exam is concerned. Last one here is inputs and outputs. You could get situational questions such as, you just got this output, what should you do with it? You got a project charter, where should it go? Or which output do you need from develop project charter to do an effective assumptions analysis, or assumptions and constraints analysis? The answer would be your assumption log. All right, so you need to know all of these bits and pieces. Lastly, page 89, that has got all the project management plan components, project documents, that stuff you need to know it cold. You need to know it really, really well. All right. So my intent was to give you some additional value. I didn't just want to rush off the call. But one more thing I need to show you here, and this is another of those situational things that you could get, and this is from Melanie, one of our students, and right there in the middle of our little discussion about Craig's experience, she came out with this one. What do you do if you are the newly assigned PM on a project that is behind schedule and over budget with limited resources? as one team member just left the project to work on another project. How do you get the project on track? You see, and you could get a variety of options. Should you fast track? Should you crash? Should you do X, Y, or Z? All that stuff. Last but not least, we've got tips for situational questions, and Craig dropped some major gold for us, and he told us, hey, you got to document, you got to communicate, you got to follow the process. And I'm like, that's some major goal, Craig. I need to share this with everyone else. So I was harvesting all of his ideas, as he was sharing this. So document whatever needs to be documented. If you're carrying out a change, you don't just do it, you got to document. Then communicate what has happened, what has transpired, share the information, and then follow the process. And you probably already know that in order to send out your work performance reports, you do it in a particular process. In which process do we send out work performance reports? Tell me. If you're on the call and you are a PMP Don or boss, you got certified, I expect you to know that. Tell me. Maybe I'll surprise you. If you are a PMP and you're on the call, tell me which process are work performance reports sent out and disseminated. Tell me. Or maybe you're not a PMP boss. Maybe you're right there trying to get prepared for the exam. Tell me as well. I'm curious. Mr. Zakaria Harud, how you doing, man? What's up? What time is it where you are? You doing okay? I know you're getting ready for this journey, so tell me, where are you in the process? I hope it's going good. I hope the PMI are not giving you sleepless nights. I hope the PMBOK guide has been a good friend, a good follower and a good friend of your footsteps, taking it with you everywhere you go. Some people, they hate the guide, they don't want to lug it about, and I say, okay, put it on your tablet, worst case scenario, or your phone. Mr. Christopher Barnes, thank you, man. You gotta go beast mode. That's the only way. That's the only way to go, Christopher. You gotta be beastly when it comes to this stuff. I tell people that the exam is an 800-pound gorilla, and that's why PMP usually comes on these shows to remind people it's a beast. You gotta do everything possible to get this, sick exam under control. So guys, I hope this helps someone who is wondering, what am I going to do? How am I going to get traction? How am I going to ramp up again? I hope these videos will help you. I'm currently doing a little bit of editing on a couple of those videos. So as soon as I'm done with the edits of those live streams, I will be sharing them on the channel. And again, like I said, if you are getting ready for the PMP exam, you need to go to pmsucceed.com. Because if you go to pmsucceed.com, you will be able to sign up. You'll be able to sign up for our course coming up in August. And it's going to be, as usual, a savage course. Any student that gets into that classroom, my goodness, they're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to make sure that people come away understanding the content, and we're going to come away making sure that people can actually apply the content to their jobs. Because, it's one thing to read the PMBOK guide, but it's another thing to be able to actually apply that stuff, to apply it to your work. Some people read the PMBOK, but they don't know where to start from, in applying it to their job. I am going to be covering that in the course. So one more time, go to pmsucceed.com. That's the website that you can see behind me there. Go there, and you want to click on the schedule. The schedule will show you what exactly is happening. So this is what's up, folks. August 4th is when it starts. It's a Saturday, 11 a.m. and it's going to go all the way till the 1st or the 5th, I beg your pardon, of September. That's a Wednesday. So we've got Saturdays and we got Wednesdays. Wednesdays is 1 hour, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. Saturdays, very accessible. It's 8 a.m. if you're Pacific time, 11 a.m. if you're East Coast time. if you're in Africa, UK, Middle East, wherever you are, you know, you will also be able to jump in. It would be evening, so all the day's fun will be over, you know, the usual weekend fun, whether you're going out, whatever you're doing. Hopefully you can get back quickly enough to jump into these training sessions, because trust me, folks, this is the only way to do it. The way to do it is to hone in on study time. It ain't gonna go away except you dedicate time to it. You know, I've been looking at a mountain of work that I've got, and folks, you're just gonna make yourself a list and take time out to do it. So if you don't take time out to study, folks, it ain't gonna go nowhere. You're gonna have the whole 49 and the whole 200 of the ITTOs and the grouped and ungrouped tools and techniques to study. No. Come to the course. Let's make it easy. One of the reasons I recommend going for course is that it puts you into a routine, into a regimen, into a rhythm, and it helps you get your wheels on the track, properly aligned, and boom, before you know it, you've got so much knowledge ammo. You're like, let me just take a week out, finish this thing, get the monkey off my back. A lot of our students after the training, they know what to do. They know I need to keep the momentum up just for one more week, get deep into page 686 and all of those grouped and ungrouped tools and techniques, because let's face it, folks, when you really look at the PMBOK guide, you know the most difficult areas, it's not the documents. The documents and the plans, they are easier to understand compared to the tools and techniques. Seriously. I mean, I heard this from one of our Praizion Media staff members who took a PMI exam and said, my goodness, those tools and techniques were sick. And I had to go myself to take a look at the questions that we had developed over the years, and I was able to see exactly what this individual meant. The tools and techniques are the difficult part of the exam. They're quite hard, folks. They're quite hard. So the way to get this stuff over and done with, in my mind, is for you to say, okay, I'm going to prepare some time aside, take some time out, do what I need to do, and focus. And this will give you the momentum you need, and hopefully the momentum that you will sustain to get this monkey off your back. All right? So, those of you who showed up to listen, I got a little something for you. It's not that big, it's not that huge, but it's a little something that will, you know, kind of make you know that your buddy Phil was thinking of you. So for those of you on the call, I'm going to give you just 1 month of access to a curriculum that I just came out with a few hours ago. And it's called Project Management Night School. Project Management Night School is a curriculum I came out with on Vimeo very recently, pretty much just before I got on this call. And I thought, well, you know, so my buddies are trying to get this monkey off their back. They need all the encouragement they can get. And they need to know that their buddy Phil is thinking of them. You see? So I'm going to give you guys that are currently on the call, I'm going to give you a code for you to go in within the next 24 hours. You have to go in within the next 24 hours, folks. If you don't go in there within the next 24 hours, you're not going to be able to get the deal. It's totally zero cost. Take a look at the screen behind me. I'm not playing games. Totally free. Now, there's some videos that are essential for your understanding of project management basics. But the thing is, a lot of people, they don't dive into those. They go straight into knowledge areas and process groups, and poor people don't know what a portfolio is, don't know what a project is, don't know what a program is. So I want to help people, you know. And the actual cost of this, I made it extremely low just to help folks. I made it $9.99. But for those of you on the call, like I said, I'm going to give it away to 15 of you for free. Now, I know on these calls, a lot of people don't join up front, but those of you, you know, who joined and stayed, you know, the early bird who stayed caught the worm, not the one who flew off. So take a look at this link. First of all, you need to set up a Vimeo account. Set up your Vimeo account and then go to that link. The link, I should probably share it on the screen. Let me share that on the screen here. You want to go to tinyurl.com/PMNS free, all one word. That's Project Management Night School, free. If you go there and apply the code quick, you'll get it. But like I said, it's the folks who stayed and remain on the phone that are probably going to get the benefit of this. So let me share my screen one more time with you so that you can see that code. Let's go back in time. And so that's it. As you can see, it's tinyurl.com/Project Management Night School free. PMNS free. If you type that into your browser while logged into Vimeo, hey, you got to be logged into Vimeo. You got to have a Vimeo account. If you don't have a Vimeo account, type stick in. So the clocks go, and you want to type that in after you got your Vimeo account, and you'll be able to get this curriculum. First few people who are able to jump in. Sorry, if you're watching this after the fact, I have these deals every now and again, these deals that I just throw out to help my friends who are trying to put this monkey off their back. So if you don't get this one, don't worry. You know, last week I gave out one of these, actually 2 of these for free. You know, the audio digest, I gave 2 of those away. The week before that, I believe it was Damendra who got the flashcards. So I don't know too many channels on YouTube that share about PMP exam training and give you away free stuff. You see, your buddy Phil's trying to help you. People get mad when I'm talking to them about, hey, come for training. You know, I need you to come for training so I can help people, you know, by giving them away free stuff, you know. I know on YouTube we already have a bunch of free videos, but I try to give out some more just to encourage people, you know, those people in other countries that find it hard. I'm also looking to help those folks as well, however I can, you know. So anyway, apply that code. I hope this session has helped you, and I'm hoping it reminds you, okay, that your buddy Phil's thinking of you. Quick. Hey, don't waste time. Go there immediately. You know, sign up. It's on Vimeo.com, and the moment you sign up, you'll be able to see your buddy Phil in Vimeo, you know. So that's where you want to be, right there. Like I said, I came out with this just hours ago. And for those who don't get the deal, don't worry, it's just $9.99. You know, just go sign up, $9.99. If you're not able to get the deal that these guys right here are getting, no big deal, it's just $9.99. And like I said, it's the very basics, you know, of project management. It will expose you to projects, programs, portfolios, and the like. You know, to some people, this is like, oh, I already know that. But I know that a lot of people are not as familiar with all of those base definitions that are in our PMBOK Guide 6th edition and in general. All right? So thank you very much. If you found this useful, don't forget, hey, I want you to share this video on your social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I want you to share this on LinkedIn, share it on all of those boards and forums, you know, the Reddits of this world, the Snapchat, whatever. Just share it anywhere you can so that people know that there's help. There's help. I can't count the amount of people that have said, Phil, I passed the exam because you helped me, because I found you on YouTube. Someone said, Phil, I wish I'd found you sooner. I'm like, well, my YouTube subscribers need to help me to get the word out that there's a guy called Phil that is one of the few people that is passionate about the book that everyone's running away from. You know, not very many trainers tell you to read the guide. Everyone says boycott the ridiculous thing. But I'm the one telling you, hey, might be a good idea. Might be a good idea if you read the book. you know. But anyway, thank you so much for your audience. I appreciate you. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in another of these sessions. Hey, don't forget to make that ITTO game for yourself. I think you'll find it quite interesting. Bye for now, folks. Oh, before I go, let me just make sure that my friends don't have questions. Mr. Hussein, how are you? You want me to type that thing in? It's kind of giving me difficulty, Mr. Mohammed. I don't know why it's giving me this difficulty, but I think our Google friends, the Google boys, you know, and our cohorts at YouTube, I don't think they like us typing in chats that have links to places outside of regular websites or tiny URLs. All right, so, oh, you see, I don't think it worked. Did it work? Nope. I tried typing it in, but it didn't work. All right, let me try one more time. tinyurl.com/PMNS free. If you put all that together, Mr. Hussein, it should work for you. Awesome, Chris. I'm glad it did. So Chris said, work performance data is a direct output of direct and managed project work. That's correct. And then you've got work performance information, which comes out of all your monitoring and controlling processes. Don't forget that. And then ultimately, you've got your work performance reports. And that was really what I was asking. But either way, everybody got the prize. Everyone who stayed on the call got the prize. You know, it's just a little bit of encouragement. It's not like a major 20-hour course, but it's, you know, 3+ hours of content that's not on YouTube and is not anywhere else, you know, for free, just for being on this catch-up call on the closing process group, which probably ended up being the longest of all the calls and hopefully the most value, because it's really all about the value, not about how long the call was. All right? So thank you very much, folks. I appreciate you, appreciate your followership, and I wish you all the best on the PMP exam. Go kill it. Let the PMI know where you are, where you're at. Hey, I'm alive. And guess what? PMP exam is no big deal. I'll take you down anytime. That's what your mantra needs to be. I'm going to take down the exam. I'm going to take out the exam, you know. All right, folks, enough said. Take care and bye for now.